Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Engine25 YouTube channel. This is another episode of Engine25 Reviews. Usually only do one movie at a time. Today we're talking about a bunch of stuff. But before we get to that, remember to like and subscribe if you like what you see. Every time you click, it helps. So I appreciate anyone taking the time to watch, and let's get on into it. Um, Welcoming back a guest from our early episodes. Um, Hold on, I'm already being clumsy. Here we go. We have Katy Burrell, who is a film scholar now pursuing a PhD in communication with a specialization in film studies at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Did I get all that right?
Yeah, hopefully. We're not there yet, but it's in the works.
Excellent. Always cool to hear, and very happy to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks, Brandon. How are you doing?
Doing well. Been Things have been a little weird. I started going to see movies again back in July, and
Mhm.
then COVID had a really gross spike with this whole Delta thing. But I went to see James Bond last week, and I was very excited about it. So
Yeah,
it seems
it
like
definitely feels good to be back in the swing as safely as we can towards the, onset of all these award season releases. So it's I had a pretty crazy summer. So now I'm like finally starting to settle down and be able to go see new stuff again. So
excellent. We're moving in the right direction.
yes.
So that's it's always good to see. Um,
Yep.
so what if today we're going to talk about the Batman trailer that came out last week. We've also both recently seen No Time to Die and Denis Villeneuve's Dune. But before we get there, is there anything else you want to talk about? What have you been watching lately?
I also saw The Last Duel, which I thought was very good. And I highly encourage anybody that can safely go see the film, go see it in theaters. It's and not just safely for COVID, but it is a very heavy film about abuse and rape. So if just trigger warning in general, but it's a great film. And for those reasons, to be wary of,
Right.
the content or whatever, I think that's why people haven't gone to see it. I just think it's kind of heavy for right now.
That's
But
fair. We have a lot of heavy in our day to day.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's why it hasn't really gotten the reception that they normally would.
Right.
I
It's
think,
it's very well reviewed, which is
yeah,
good. It's not doing too well as far as ticket sales,
right.
but
Yeah.
it's no they'll get one from me in the next couple of weeks. Um,
Yeah. I think it was Chris Stuckman that said it's really weird to be living in a world where a movie written by, with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, starring Jason Bourne, Batman, and Kylo Ren, flops, directed by Ridley Scott.
Yes,
Like it's really,
thank you for calling out my boy Chris Stuckman. I've been watching him for years.
yeah,
Plug for him. YouTube.com/Chris Stuckman. He's slowly transitioning into filmmaking and kind of moving away from doing the regular YouTube thing. But I wish him the best, and he's always one of the ones I check out if there's a movie I'm really looking forward to. Um,
yeah,
in
definitely.
in
I thought
fact,
his analysis of that situation was so spot on.
it's
So
true.
really 100%.
And he and I had a really similar opinion of Halloween Kills, which is awful. Um, it's fucking terrible. The I had not seen the 2018 reboot. Um, and this it's some other podcasters I watch at over at Kind of Funny. They were doing a rewatch of the original movie, and then 2018, and then Halloween Kills, leading into Halloween Kills. So I was like, okay, I haven't seen the original Halloween in a while. I'll check this out. Let's do this. The original Halloween is still like it's a really effective thriller.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that definitely shows its age. Um, but you know, I kind of thought Halloween 2018 was like aggressively mediocre. It's just like it's not bad, it doesn't do anything remarkable. A couple of moments I really liked, but it's just not there's nothing really special about it. And then
Yeah.
Halloween Kills is awful. It's just
I
like,
just really enjoy the originals of all that stuff so much.
I would rather watch Halloween 2 than watch any of these movies again. And the talking like the 1980s Halloween 2, not the Rob Zombie one, because that one's pretty bad. Also, that one's pretty
Right.
bad too.
Yeah, I haven't had any inclination to go see it, which I know is really sad because I love Jamie Lee Curtis. But I think the best thing that I've seen come out of the whole reboot or sequel for to Halloween Kills is Jamie Lee Curtis walking the red carpet for the premiere, dressed as her mom's character from Psycho.
Excellent.
That makes the film buff in me just go
Yes,
crazy,
it's
like giddiness.
scream.
But
Yes, I understand.
yeah,
Other than that, just been watching a lot of TV. Ted Lasso had a really great second season. Apple TV in general has been killing it. Foundation is a little confusing, but very cool. Um,
hmm
what what else have we? I don't know. That's probably enough to talk about for now. But yeah. So the plan for today is we're gonna sit and kind of talk about, like I said before, the Batman trailer, um, and then we're gonna talk about No Time to Die. Have a lot of thoughts there, and then Dune, which that was probably my most well, Bond and Dune were probably my most anticipated movies of last year, and
I
now
think
here
they were
they are.
everybody's two
They were
most. Yeah.
originally scheduled to release 6 months apart. Now here we are a year and a half later, and they're both in theaters at the same time. Um,
Yeah.
what a weird world we live in right now. But yeah, so what did you think? I've definitely got some things I want to go into detail, but what did you think of the trailer for the Batman?
I first saw the trailer for the Batman on my phone, and then I saw it bigger on my TV. And then when I went to go see Dune, I saw the trailer in the theater. And I liked the trailer from the first time I saw it. I thought it was lovely. I thought it was really something not different, but different for Batman.
Yes.
I thought it was refreshing. Seeing this
I like that
trailer,
word, refreshing.
yeah, I think that's like, we've seen so much Batman and superhero-ness in general, but this feels like not trying to be anything that it's not. It's not trying to be new, it's not trying to fit into anything else per se. Like, it is what it is, which is refreshing. So
I was, after several years of MCU movies, um, like I was really in the camp that, all right, if DC wants to make a bunch of disjointed movies, that's cool. But they need to decide either everything's related or everything's not.
yeah,
And I think I've kind of softened on that a little bit. But, like there are again trigger warnings with the Joker movie, but I think there was a lot to like about it. This movie seems like it's going to be a very unique, stand on its own kind of thing.
yeah,
But also, they're still kind of adding movies to this other universe with the Suicide Squad, and we have the Flash and another Aquaman coming.
yeah. And then apparently Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton are
Are
also
in the
in the
Flash.
Flash movie, and I'm like,
You're talking. You watched it on your phone the first time. I was sitting. I watched all 4.5 hours of the FanDome on my big screen. So that was my Saturday afternoon last week.
nice.
Yeah. Anyway, yes. So I do have some things to say
Mhm.
about the Batman. And what have I done there? There we go. Um, this trailer is very special. They're setting this movie up to be a really specific kind of tone piece. And I love the production design. He's still Bruce Wayne. He still has the money, but it's not the Batman suit. He's wearing armor, but it's not like military grade, or at least it doesn't look like it. It didn't come out of R&D at Wayne Enterprises. It almost looks like he welded it together in his garage, which is
Mhm.
really it's a really interesting aesthetic choice. And Catwoman definitely looks like that. She's not rich, and she and I love the Nolan movies. Nolan's Catwoman had these high tech goggles and stuff. And this is definitely not that.
Right.
Um,
I get the distinct feeling of like going back into the comic book genre.
yes,
You
and
know,
like
this
almost
feels like a comic book movie from the sense of like everything's very visceral and saturated. And I feel like even though I really do like the Zack Snyder and Ben Affleck version of Batman, like I really do enjoy it. I like it a lot. But this just feels different to me. It feels like we're returning to that kind of like Sam Raimi, Spider-Man verse kind of feel, right? It
right.
just
They're
feels
and
different.
they're peeling it back, like, so it's going to be a really focused kind of thing. It seems like.
Yeah.
Um, and the the my biggest things with this trailer are like, I'm going to keep coming back around to the visual style because it's designed very specifically, and you can even, this is the first frame of the trailer, but this is going to be something that's really consistent as we go through. Every shot is mostly, they're like this black and gray and like sometimes kind of brown. It's really prevalent, except there's always, in every shot in this trailer, there's one color, maybe two, that really stick out. Like we got these neon lights, and we have like the red and blue from probably a police car that we can't see. um,
Mhm.
and that's just an example here. If we
I just
scroll,
also love the callback of this particular shot. I am such a bad bad researcher. I didn't look this up beforehand, but I distinctly remember whatever the artist name is, but the diner scene, that very famous
with like
diner scene.
Elvis and James Dean and whatever, they're all just sitting at the diner through the window.
Yeah, but the original one, like I'll have to find it later, but that iconic image that we have in like Americana art,
Absolutely.
that references this. And I just think that these images, like you're saying, with the colors, and they really catch our eye and make us start thinking. I feel like those kinds of things are adding to things that we already know, like that painting, or even in this shot here with the coffee cup. Like this is like classic American diner kind of um
Absolutely.
iconography. So I think that throughout these images, because I think this is going to be a very image heavy film, which good, it should be, it's film. I think that a lot of these color choices that you've been seeing are really meant to like evoke something else into the viewer as well.
Absolutely.
Not just that they're grabbing our eye, but it makes us feel something else too.
Um, here's another, or what I would call the next major example. There's another along here, like one of these shots, you can see some like red from the coffee cup. It's the only color in the shot. Here we have the Riddler green, and obviously the question mark, and the brown and this green color. It's completely unique to anything we've seen in the last 20 seconds.
Hmm.
And it's a little bit of pop, and I think the green here is a big deal because this Riddler, like, he looks nothing like any version of this character ever has before. And they haven't shown it a whole lot, but he's got like a weird mask on with goggles, and it's just like a raincoat almost. Um, but it's not super evocative of like classic Riddler imagery, and I'm not to say that I like Jim Carrey and Batman Forever, but it's not good. You know what I mean? It's not. It's just it is a choice to be a cartoon. In that old case, this is
Okay.
not that. And I'm
Okay.
not. Yeah. But it's just a. Hey, by the way, he still likes green. So what's another moment that really sit right around here?
If you can find the gunfire sequence too, that's
Yes, which is amazing. This here. First of all, he's stuck in this tiny box. The only everything's black except the red on his shirt.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, anytime there's fire, it's the only color in the shot. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't get over how consistent it is with that, making that decision. It's just like, and I've watched it a dozen times, and it's always the thing that sticks out. I'm trying to find this flare here. There. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
these neon light. I can't remember what's going on here. Maybe he's fighting in a club, but it's this sunset shot is
Mm-hmm.
stunning. And this movie is going to be a visual feast, but in a way that's like it's not a big special effects movie.
Right.
This is an art house film masquerading as a superhero movie. It's got a Batman coat of paint on it.
Yeah, yeah. I really do love that sequence of them in the tunnel, and he's fighting all the gunned bad guys, because I was listening to other podcasters and hearing this, and I think it was on New Rock Stars that they mentioned that the cinematographer for this film is the same one that was the cinematographer on Rogue One, and that great sequence in the tunnel of the ship where Darth Vader lights up his saber, and that's the only light for that whole sequence, and it's amazing.
And it's awesome.
Basically
Yes.
the same thing here, except with gunfire, and it's Batman.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was a really cool thing that they pointed out, and just really emphasizes how they're taking these things that have worked before and for other projects, but applying them in different ways, and the emphasis on that light, like you hit it on the head with
it's really high contrast, like almost a noir approach, even though like it is in color,
Yes.
obviously, but
Yes.
maybe it's here, these sparks.
Mm.
By the way, I am this is incredible. It's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, same cinematographer as Rogue One with the Darth Vader sequence. So I think that the entire idea of light and color, it's probably coming from the cinematographer as well, not just the director, but they go hand in hand. I think they've just done a lot of thought into exactly what you've said with the color and how the color translates into light.
Wow.
I think it's.
And I know this has been talked about online before, but like, can you believe this is Colin Farrell?
No, I can't.
It's ridiculous.
I am so excited for his performance in this.
Yes. I don't know. I am also, let's see if I can find a good still. I am all in for Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman.
Yes.
Anywho.
She's got a couple of really good shots in this trailer. And also, the elephant in the room is that this is Rob Pattinson, right? I saw a post online the other day saying, people are like, the dude from Twilight is doing
and that's not fair. Yes,
I know,
the answer is
the rest of this post was like that. It's like, no, and it had stills from all of these other movies that he's done that are absolutely fantastic, and it was like, this is the guy that's doing Batman. So whatever you think about Rob Pattinson as an actor, if you haven't seen him do other stuff, get Twilight out of your head.
The Lighthouse came out just a couple of years ago. It's the only actors in the whole movie are him and Willem Dafoe, and it's stupendous.
Rob Pattinson is a fantastic actor, and he knows how to carry a frame.
His look as Bruce Wayne is a little weird to me, like the long emo hair kind of. It's a choice.
It's a choice, but I think it works in the context of all of the other insane choices in this movie.
That's that's a fair point. This is it's a Batman we haven't seen. It's a Gotham we haven't seen.
Yes.
And excuse me. Matt Reeves was really big. Like they filmed the movie in Glasgow, because it's so like Gotham is going to have like kind of an old England like kind of aesthetic to it, as opposed to the real world American City like the Nolan movies, or like really gothic like the Burton movies. Like it's another separate thing entirely to what we've already done. And that's how many times has Batman been on the screen and been done well. There are just as many Spider-Men, except half of them are what they are. You know what I mean? So it's but it's the thing I would compare Batman to Spider-Man is to say that they both thrive on reinvention. And if you respect the source material, even if you do your own thing, if you respect it and you don't treat it like it's a cartoon, you can do something really cool.
And I think the choices that they're making in regards to the styling of Bruce Wayne and Batman, two totally different things, I think.
I agree.
And
the Batsuit looks so fucking cool.
They're really digging into this idea of who is the real persona.
Mhm.
You know, is Bruce Wayne the alter ego for Batman, or is Batman the alter ego for Bruce Wayne? So I think that's where some of the choices for the look for Bruce Wayne in
Right.
this film come from. And I'm
And
excited to see it.
it seems like it might be the first time that we've really delved into like Bruce Wayne's mental health in like in any
Mm,
dramatic way. Like that other movies have hinted at it. You know, it's like maybe Ben Affleck likes to beat up bad guys just a little too much. You know what I mean? But it's you know, but they haven't really examined it a whole lot, and that's something that I would be interested in. You know, because his
yeah.
uh, Bruce Wayne's psyche, you know, he's a really damaged person, and sometimes that doesn't come across. You know, because he's
Mhm.
also Batman is always the smartest guy in the room. In any
Yeah.
situation, unless it's in the same room as Lex Luthor, which almost never happens.
I know. And I think that the Catwoman character is going to be the audience's view for this part of the narrative. And I think that because of the one stunning shot of Zoe Kravitz in this trailer where Bruce is like wailing on this guy and she looks terrified, you know? And
Yes,
I think that's a really interesting way to address exactly this
right.
issue of mental health in this film. I think that's a really interesting idea that I'm certainly going to be looking for in not only the text, like the dialogue of the screenplay, but also how they decide to translate that through the performances. I think Catwoman will be the audience perspective for that particular issue.
That's a really interesting idea, and I am all here for it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah, so if you are thinking, what the heck is Edward Cullen doing playing Batman? Get it out of your head right now. I am totally
Forget it.
here
No, yeah,
for
it's gonna
the
be this is gonna
Batman.
be something very very cool. Um,
Yeah. And I
and
think
it's
he's proving it every single time we get new info about this film. I think he looks great as Batman. I think he fits it. I think the choices that they're going with for this film, just from this one trailer, tell a lot about what this film is going to be like. So I think he carries it. I have all the faith in the world that he's going to do a great job.
me too. You know, and Matt Reeves is best known for the Planet of the Apes movies, the second and third of the new trilogy. And if you haven't seen those, they're both fantastic. You know,
Yeah.
that's a venerable sci-fi franchise that has seen its ups and downs. But no, those new movies are really something special. Okay,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so there we go. The next movie that we've both seen lately is No Time to Die.
Yeah.
Um, it's Daniel Craig's definite, absolutely for sure last outing as James Bond. Um, so what did let's start with you. What did you think? Just kind of general
Mm.
thoughts at first.
I have to preface this with saying I have not seen all these Bond movies. I have not. I've
You
seen
you have not seen us because most people haven't seen all the James Bond movies because most
right.
people aren't like me and aren't crazy. But have you seen the Daniel Craig ones or no?
I've seen Skyfall, and I am aware of some of the events and happenings of the previous films. And it's on my to-do list is to watch the other Daniel Craigs. I saw Skyfall, so I knew that I was okay going into No Time to Die.
Mhm.
You know, I knew that there's going to be a couple of things, and I had enough backstory to kind of understand that. So I don't think you actually need to. I think this movie stands alone really, really well. I don't think you need to have seen any of the other Bond films to see this. I think the story as it's told in this one film, in No Time to Die, is really, really good. Having seen Skyfall, like I had more of an introduction, like it certainly didn't hurt. But I think that anybody could go see this movie and be totally 100% satisfied with it as a standalone movie.
I are you hearing me? I'm getting a weird error.
Oh, I can't hear you.
So this is how things happen. I am going to change it there. Is that better?
Yeah, there you
Okay.
go.
So it just told me that my microphone broke. Um, That's
Oh,
weird. I'm okay. I'm still getting recorded, and you're hearing me, so we're just going to go and pretend nothing happened. Um,
I mean, it sounds great.
so
So,
that's interesting, because I wouldn't disagree necessarily. Like it's a fine movie on its own. I will say that like there's a lot of carryover in the Daniel Craig ones, which
mhm,
is different than previous Bond movies. Like they're they very rarely, other than um, it's a few specific times, but they very rarely reference other movies that have already happened.
mhm,
Um, except in specific situations. Like there are a couple of times, like in License to Kill, they talk about how Bond was married once, and that's on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is the first one that didn't have Sean Connery back in the '60s. The opening scene is he gets married and then retires, and then she gets murdered. So he spends the rest of the movie get going back around on that. And
so it's
then yeah,
John Wick.
so they referenced that in one of the Timothy Dalton ones. He's not so into it going to weddings because he was married once and she died because of his job. So that's a
Okay.
specific instance, but there's before Quantum of Solace, there had never been a Bond movie that was a direct sequel to the one before or to any other.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so and these movies, they have their ups and downs, but it really, having seen No Time to Die, it's really a big start to finish. It's a 5-movie story arc for James Bond, which is very cool and just completely unique to a franchise that has 25 movies in it. Which
Yeah.
is kind of, which
Yeah.
is honestly surprising. It ties up um, a lot of loose ends of Spectre, and I actually think it elevates Spectre to a
Mhm.
degree that the last movie had a lot of issues, and that's why this one took so long to get made. It seems like they were kind of trying to course correct, but it ties up a lot of loose threads from that, and I think it makes the two movies together are better certainly than
Okay.
Spectre is on its own. Um,
Okay. That's interesting.
yeah,
I certainly was aware that I probably should have seen Spectre, after I got into this movie.
that's fair.
But I also didn't feel like I was missing anything.
Right, and
I
that's
felt like
that is an important point to me. Because the love interest played by Leah
Leah
Seydoux,
Seydoux, I love
and
her.
then Blofeld are both introduced in Spectre. Um,
Mm, okay.
but it did at the beginning of this movie, he goes and see Vesper's grave,
Hmm.
and before this movie, I was convinced that Bond was going to be in love with Vesper for the rest of his life. Um, and that is because I have been resistant to say that the Daniel Craig era are the best James Bond movies because they're very, very different. And not it's just there are good movies and bad movies in the franchise. Sometimes they're a little more serious. Sometimes they're a little more sci-fi. Sometimes they're a little more goofy.
Hmm.
But the Daniel Craig, the starting with Casino Royale especially, takes a very boots on the ground, real world. There's no gadgets here except for a defibrillator that he has in his glove box. Like there's really isn't any fancy technology in Casino Royale, um,
Hmm.
and it's that Skyfall kind of blends the two. It's got a really intense, gritty feel, but starts to bring in some of the old stuff like Q and
Hmm.
the gadgets. Like he has the gun that only he can fire, and a couple of
Hmm.
stuff like that. Um, and in this movie, kind of goes all in on the sci-fi. Um,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and that's it. Totally works. And that was it. I guess all I'm trying to say is it's a choice you make, and it might not mesh together. But I
Yeah.
guess the
It sounds like they started in one place when they started the Daniel Craig series, and then they kind of started wanting to take it in a different direction after.
Yeah, and that's probably fair. And Quantum of Solace, which is the second Daniel Craig movie, is hot garbage. But that is it came out after Casino Royale, which is a spectacular movie. And it was also like it's probably the first major blockbuster that was affected by the writer strike in '07. Because
Mhm.
it came out like less than 2 years after Casino Royale, or like right at 2 years. And
It's
it
rough.
follows up. I hate to spoil the ending of Casino Royale, but
Okay, go for it.
uh, Vesper dies at the end because it's she makes a deal with the enemy to
Mm.
save Bond, and then he thinks, and it's really because it's the first woman he ever loved, and you could say that's why he's such a womanizer, and it's because he's coping with the fact that he can never have his partner back, and
Mm.
he blames himself for it until No Time to Die, and that is he can't allow himself to move on and be with Madeline until he forgives himself for Vesper's death, which
Mhm.
happens at Casino. So it's and that so this is a 5-movie arc that starts with that in Casino Royale, and it wraps up here in No Time to Die. Um, and I think considering the speed bumps along the way, it's wrapped up in a really admirable fashion. I was really impressed with this movie. I was yeah. Did you? It sounds like you liked it. Have you said? Have we said? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was great. It was, I'd seen a couple of movies in theaters in like the springtime, and I saw Shang-Chi,
I'm
and
gonna have to wait for Disney Plus to see Shang Chi.
I enjoyed seeing things in the theater and felt like it was a good experience. But there was something about seeing No Time to Die, because I think it's just because it's so classic. It does evoke something of a pre-pandemic era, whereas everything else was kind of just new. There was something about No Time to Die, the quality of the filmmaking, the context both of the films and where we're at in our world right now. There's just something about it, the overall execution of this film, that was just incredibly satisfying to me.
Excellent. That probably comes down to an excellent director in Cary Joji
Yeah.
Fukunaga. Uh, did you watch True Detective?
I have not, but I'm very
You
familiar with
should.
Cary Joji Fukunaga.
Yeah.
One of my favorite cinematography directorial moments in cinema ever is from his version of Jane Eyre with Mia Wasikowska and Fassbender, where they play Jane and Mr. Rochester. There is a fantastic moment in that movie. First of all, it's beautiful, and it is just a stunning film. But there's one moment where Jane is walking down a hallway, and literally the only light source for this scene comes from a candle next to her face. And it's a close up, and it is just absolutely stunning. And so ever since then, I've kind of had an idea in my head whenever I see something of Cary Joji Fukunaga's. And I just think about that one sequence in that movie and the color palettes, and I see how it's embedded in his other stuff. So I definitely saw his hand in No Time to Die, and I think he's a fantastic director. But I definitely carried that in with me from when he did Jane Eyre, because it was a very gritty kind of stripped down kind of story. And I get that same sense from this movie, but in a very, you know, on a bigger scale. There's a lot of special effects in this movie, but at the heart, it's about him moving on. It's about
Yes.
him,
Learning to trust another person.
yeah, and then dealing with that, like that struggle is reflected in um the villain's struggle. I forget the villain's name, but I know it's
Safin.
Safin, yeah, played by, oh my god, he was just on,
Rami Malek.
I love Rami Malek.
I know, Mr. Robot, dude.
He's fantastic. So I see those struggles reflected in the main conflicts, and then everything else is kind of excess to that, that makes it feel like a Bond film. But at its core, I see the influence of the director and how those things are very stripped down.
It's definitely like it's a really human story, which like we historically have not gotten for James Bond.
Mm,
Like he's he's quippy, but kind of very stoic
yeah.
for the most part. And we don't historically there is not a lot of growth
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it's left a mark on the character that it's going to be really hard to take back later on. You're like, I'm not there. It's going to be a big challenge for whatever the next version of James Bond is, because this one was so different and so effective. And that's not to say previous ones haven't been effective, but
Mm-hmm.
like when Pierce, after Die Another Day, like Pierce Brosnan, he had done his duty, and after he had one good movie, two okay movies, and a terrible one. And so it's he I love Pierce Brosnan, and I think like the world is not enough. Whenever I get into James Bond and do a rewatch, some of the movies change around, but that one and the world is not enough and GoldenEye are ones that are always on the list for me. So it's
Mm-hmm.
but I guess to say, the transition from Pierce Brosnan to Daniel Craig, first of all, it was, it took 4 or 5 years, but Daniel Craig was such a dramatic departure, and I
Yeah.
don't know if we should expect a dramatic departure from Daniel Craig. I don't know if we should expect something gritty and emotional like these movies, or if we should expect something more historic like classic James Bond. So and that's and times have changed. The when everything got better when we got out of the Cold War, except some of the writing in the James Bond movies. Because that was the not Russia, but it's,
Mm.
European goofy cartoon characters were the villains in so many of these movies. So
I think that wherever they end up taking it is going to be informed on who they cast.
yes,
And I
and
don't.
it's kind of we're in a uh, kind of a weird time as I did some reading about when Pierce Brosnan was cast, and like apparently everyone just knew that he was the guy. Everyone knew that they were just waiting on the announcement, and everyone
Mm,
knew he was James Bond.
mm,
With when Daniel Craig or when they were casting Daniel Craig, that was not the case, and it doesn't. Right now I think there are several people that could do it.
mhm.
I would love to see Henry Cavill. I don't think it'll happen because Henry Cavill was in contention when they cast Daniel Craig. So I think
What?
his yeah he so he tested when they cast Daniel Craig. So I think his time has probably passed. I think Richard Madden from Game of Thrones would be a good choice. I would be all in for Idris Elba, but at this point I think his career has expanded beyond it. So that would be like a stunt
Yeah.
casting that Idris Elba doesn't need James Bond anymore. Um,
No. No.
so
I
it's hard to say.
I I I mean, I think I 100% stand Henry Cavill every day of my life. But I
Yeah, we've
I
talked about it. I love him.
I love him to death, and I think he would do a really good job on it. But this is going to sound a little counterintuitive,
Please.
especially about with the Pierce Brosnan thing. I think he's too much of an obvious choice. You
And
know?
that's fair.
Yeah. I would like. I think
I
they're
think they
going
need
to
to
go in a
go with
social direction.
somebody young with a lot of gravitas, and
Mhm.
I'd be totally okay with Bond being another race. I don't it doesn't
Yeah.
matter to me.
Yeah.
They pick somebody talented. I think they need to go young. I think they need to go younger than Daniel Craig was even. He was mid-30s when he got cast, and now he's 54 or something. So it's
Yeah. I also think that they really strung out this series a long time. I don't think they'll do that again. Um, so I think they could go with somebody in their 30s. I just don't think that they would run the series as long. Not that Daniel Craig doesn't do a great job. I
right.
absolutely love this movie. But I just think from a standpoint of, you know, people are wanting to move on to other things faster these days. So I
That's
think
true.
that
I
they
mean, and
want
that's
to stay as
it's
fast as
anywhere
possible.
from two to 6 years in between the movies at any
Yeah.
point in time, and it's probably going to be quite some time before we see the next one. But
Yeah.
so do they consider that when they're planning the next movie, or are do we say, okay, we want to do a trilogy, or do we just want to get one out of the way and see how it goes? Do
Yeah.
we? Um, and
I
it's
think that
I
they
would have said that Casino Royale was a pretty standalone thing until Quantum of Solace and then Skyfall, and then Spectre, and they all reference back. All 5 of these movies reference back to Casino Royale. So it's
Yeah.
um,
I think casting wise, they probably need to stay away from any major franchises. They need to stay away from Marvel.
I think you're
Stay
probably
away
right.
from
Like I think
DC.
someone like
Stay
Richard
from Star
Madden is
Wars.
probably the most famous they should go.
Yeah, he's got great stuff under his belt. Game of Thrones, fantastic. He's fantastic. He did.
He was really good in Rocket Man, the Elton John movie.
He had a great stint in they first did Cinderella live action at Disney, and he was in that. So he's got that under his belt.
Yes.
And now he's getting into Marvel, but he's not like, it's not him carrying the whole movie.
Right. He's in Eternals, right? So it's a big ensemble movie.
Yeah. I think that, because his face and name is not associated with just one big character, I think he would be a great choice. I think that he could carry that and do it well, especially having been in, oh my God, what's that Netflix series that he did that he won a Golden Globe for? I forget what it's called, but he played an agent, like a Secret Service MI6 kind of agent, foiling
Looking it up now.
Yeah, it was wonderful. He did a really, really good job. So I
could see Bodyguard? No?
Bodyguard, yes.
Okay.
Bodyguard.
Have not seen it.
It is a wonderful series. It's kind of like normal guy Jack Ryan is how I want to describe it.
All right, I like it.
And he's so good in it. He won the Golden Globe and was really surprised. He was really truly humbled by it, and I can see that as kind of being his real audition piece, that somebody's looking at. I think Richard Madden would be a great Bond. And I just want to quickly say that Daniel Craig was getting some crap in the press when he was asked about Bond being a woman. Should they do that? And he said no. And so all the headlines were just Daniel Craig,
he doesn't think they should cast it, and that is not what he said. I don't disagree with his sentiment. I am totally okay with with 007 being a woman, and in this movie, Bond is retired and Lashana Lynch takes over the serial number 007, and she's wonderful. Fucking awesome in this movie.
Yeah.
So I would be totally okay with that. And maybe they decide that they do 3 movies with a woman and she's just 007. If the next movie they just say it's focused on Lashana Lynch, I would applaud them.
Yeah.
But I agree with Daniel Craig in saying that James Bond is a character that should be played by a man of any race, but probably a man, and that we need other characters that are just as good as Bond for women to play, and we don't have very many of those.
And what he also added into there is that James Bond is such an iconic male character that just turning it into a female, like a Jane Bond, would be a disservice to women, right? And I completely agree. I would love to see a female 007. Get that in No Time to Die. Great. It's like a bonus on a great movie. That was already great, And
there's a lot of great women in this movie. We should touch on that. I'm sorry, continue.
No problem. And I just think, delegating James Bond to Jane Bond or whatever they want to do in the context of just taking it and gender bending it is not effective. I wouldn't want to take that role. And I just think I totally agree with what he was saying. It's taking that role and making it a female role would just be it would lose gravitas to the actual casting. It would be a disservice to take a male role and just make it a female role instead of just making new female roles that are just as good and emotionally and actor wise diverse. And I don't mean diverse just in race or gender. I mean in character goals and how the actor approaches it, So I just want to put that out there that I totally agree with Daniel Craig, and I just hated how the press was Daniel Craig doesn't think a woman should be Bond. There's more to it.
That's not what he said. You're losing the context here. Yeah. So I do want to touch on the other women in No Time to Die. Um, we've mentioned Lashana Lynch,
Mhm.
who is awesome. Also, Leah Seydoux is a very talented actress, who's been in a lot of stuff, and she gives a great performance in this movie. And
She's
also very
very French, and I just want to point this out because I actually had to talk to my mother about who Leah Seydoux is, and the only way I can kind of describe her is like she is to France what a combined version of like Meryl Streep and Scarlett Johansson would be to Americans. She
that's
is,
probably fair. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, she is a very prolific actress. She is a very good actress, and she just has an incredible body of work. And she's like, you know, like France's actress, like if they could put anybody on a billboard that's not Catherine Deneuve, I would think it would
Right.
be Leah Seydoux. So yeah, anyway.
Reading here, Blue is the warmest color, Spectre, No
Yeah,
Time to Die, Inglorious
yeah,
Bastards, Mission
yep.
Impossible, Ghost Protocol. And these are just the ones that make the most money. That's what comes up when you Google it at first. These are the mainstream ones in American movies.
Hmm.
She's in The Lobster. She
Hmm.
she's every one of these movies is fantastic, and she's fantastic in them.
Yeah,
Um,
lovely.
and then Ana de Armas, who I adore, is awesome in this movie. She's like, she it starts off, she's wearing this stunning outfit, and it's this kind of, she's a CIA contact, I think,
Mhm.
and she seems very like insecure or like nervous almost. Like
She's the
I've had
ingenue.
3 weeks training or whatever, and then when
Yeah.
when the gun starts shooting, she beats the shit out of 3 guys, and and then she's
Yeah,
like, so you only had 3 weeks training.
more or less.
More or less. No, yeah, it's adorable, and she sells it every second of it, and that's for
Yeah,
someone she's only in the movie like not even 15 minutes,
no.
but to leave such a strong mark on it, and to do something so convincing with such little screen time is absolutely amazing. No, yeah, that's the
I'm pretty sure that they filmed No Time to Die, her part, before they did um Knives Out, I think. I'm pretty sure that's how the timeline
that's
goes.
possible. I was not sure.
I've
Not to
heard
say that not to say that I
back
don't
and
think that's
forth.
true, but I just don't know.
Yeah, I've heard back and forth on the timeline of it, but I'm pretty sure I remember them saying during Knives Out press that they were like, we've already worked together. Like this is our second time working together on Knives
Right.
Out. So if anybody's wondering, they were like, how they got Anna de Armas, they only put her in the movie for 15 minutes. Like, it was her first big thing,
Yeah,
And
yes, no, she was in Blade Runner 2049. Have you seen that?
yes, I
Yeah,
have.
it's another Denis Villeneuve
Oh,
movie. Um, and she plays like an AI kind of character.
mhm.
Um,
She was wonderful in that. And then I think she did Bond. And
yeah,
then
she's the main actress in Knives Out, and she's in a lot of Spanish. She's a Cuban actress. She's in a lot of Spanish language
she's playing
films.
Marilyn Monroe next,
She
actually. So
is, and I just heard that one is given the ratings board fits. Um, yeah,
really,
it might. The first pass was NC-17, which is surprising. Um,
mm, she is just fantastic. And I just want to point out that she was never intended to be like the marketing sell for this movie, right?
no, but she's in the movie. Like and
Hmm.
everyone in this movie is fantastic. Ray
Yeah,
Fiennes. No,
yeah.
yeah, that's the cast list goes on.
And I just think it's interesting. Like I saw a trailer like right after I'd seen the movie on TV for No Time to Die, and it was like 100% Anna de Armas. Like the entire like 30-second spot was pretty much all from like the 15 minutes that she's in the movie. And I was just like, I would be so angry if I was Lazy too. You know? Like they are
She's more,
totally,
I guess, because she's more known to Americans at least. I don't
yes,
I don't know about like, what it looks like in the UK for her, but
right,
um,
right. So I just thought that was interesting, at least from the American perspective. I was like, like like
You
I
have this
that's
other
I
talented
know
woman
her
who
character.
is like probably who's the most important character in the movie, honestly. Um,
Yeah,
but and anyway, no, yeah, they're all fantastic. The really
yeah.
the biggest thing that didn't work for me is Rami Malek. I thought is
Mm,
it's a lot of classic Bond villain tropes. Like they all have some kind of deformity. That's always
uh-huh.
the thing. So his face is messed up. In Skyfall, he had the facial damage from the cyanide pill.
Hmm.
Um, and then in Casino Royale, right? He has a broken tear duct, so when he it bleeds. Um, the Le Chiffre is the played by Mads Mikkelsen, who's incredible.
Oh, I
Um,
need to watch this. Okay,
but
that's what I'm doing today.
this, old Bond, like the very first Bond villain, Doctor No, he had he lost his hands in an accident, so he has prosthetic hands that are like robotic, and he can strangle people. Um,
Beautiful.
uh, Christopher Lee is the villain in The Man with the Golden Gun, and he has a third nipple. There's a character, yeah, there's a character named Jaws in some of the old movies, and he has um, dentures that are like made of steel. No, yeah, that's some of them are goofy, but no, yeah, like that's like
Yeah.
a Bond villain
Okay.
trope, is they always have some kind of physical deformity. Um,
Mhm. I am
uh,
definitely a fan of Rami Malek, and I
Me
think
too. And I don't think he was given a lot to do. He wasn't that interesting, and it's not his fault.
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think that if he had been given a little bit more depth to play with, um, I think if it was conveyed just a little bit differently, he could
Right.
have
And
been.
I like that he has like a personal history with Madeline, but I don't think that I don't think it worked a whole very well. And that's at the end of the movie. Bond has better things to do than to deal with his shit, so Bond just pulls the trigger. It's just like, and that's kind of puts a stamp on what's other. You're just telling the audience that this guy isn't the important thing of what's happening, and maybe and then maybe that's fair because um, knowing that I don't know if we want to talk about the ending. I haven't put up. I have a spoiler graphic here. I probably should throw,
Yeah,
but
spoilers.
yeah, we've been spoiling stuff the whole show so far. But
Whoops.
the I don't know, that was my biggest complaint, and I do want to mention the end because it really surprised me that they actually chose to let Bond die, and there's no question about it either. Like my expectation going in was he's gonna fake his own death and then just disappear with Madeline,
Yeah.
like Christian Bale did at the end of The Dark Knight Rises.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
but
no,
no,
this is not that.
it's not that there is an explosion. um,
He is obliterated, literally.
um,
And I mean, spoilers.
yeah,
I am being completely literal. Obliterated. And I thought it was so effective because it just, I mean, was it a little dramatic? Maybe, but that's exactly the
I mean,
direction that
Bond movies are a little dramatic.
I thought it was built up in a way that having Bond killed in like a literal missile attack of like 5 missiles was actually believable, And I was like, yeah, he's dead.
Yeah, there's not that's can't really come back from this one. Um,
And I think they had to do it that way to avoid anybody saying that he survived. Like they absolutely wanted to make sure that everybody knew this was Daniel Craig's last movie as Bond. There's
I mean, and that's
no
fair.
way.
And I think the movie is better because of it. Um,
Mhm.
and there've been some news about like decisions were being made in like about how about some stuff, some story elements well into the editing process. Like they're apparently they shot multiple scenes and they were choosing like, and I've got to. Part of me definitely thinks that they were deciding whether or not they should let Bond die at the end, but like I the fact that they did, again, I think it really caps off
Mm,
Daniel Craig's series of movies because
yeah,
Casino Royale is his first mission,
yeah.
um, and it's I guess you could assume that some other things happen intermittently there are Daniel Craig does some stuff that we don't get to see, basically because there's a lot of time. He plays the character for effectively 16 years, but
Mhm.
he goes from his first mission to his last mission, and we see most of the important things in between. Um,
Mm.
and it is again, it's just something that Bond has never done before. It's always been one and done. This movie is a contained story, and may or may not even talk about anything that's ever happened before.
Yeah.
Um,
So my question for you
sure.
is, where would you rank No Time to Die in the entire
Rankings.
filmography of Bond?
Um, hmm. I would say Daniel Craig after, and like I said, I've been resistant to admitting this, because there are so many of the old movies are so good. They're different, and in a 2021 world, they're cheesy and they're hokey. Like sometimes they're goofy. And to be fair, some of them are just downright bad. Or um, but I will admit that I think Daniel Craig is the best Bond that we've ever had.
Okay.
And Casino Royale, for sure, is definitely near the top. Um, I think I probably enjoyed Casino Royale and Skyfall more than I liked No Time to Die,
Okay.
but they're all really damn good movies.
Okay.
And um, so
So we'll call
I don't know.
No Time
Like there
to
are
Die.
this. I really like some of the Sean Connery ones. Good. Goldfinger and From Russia with Love are both absolutely fantastic. Um, even the the biggest criticisms you could point at them today is Bond gets really handsy at times where it's not so appropriate. Um, but there are also,
Yeah.
Bond's known for being a womanizer, but also the franchise is known for its strong women.
Mhm.
And there are even in the it's almost embarrassing to say, but there's a in Goldfinger there's a female villain named Pussy Galore, and it's no, and this it sounds like an Austin Powers joke, but
Yeah.
this is where Austin Powers gets the ammunition from.
Yeah.
But she's a fantastic character, and she kicks his ass. No, like it's there. So there are for every good thing, some of these old, or I'm not going to say, I'm a big fan, but there are highs and lows for sure, even in some of the older movies.
Okay.
But
So we'll put Daniel
yeah, so
Craig at the top of the Bonds and
thank
No
you.
Time to
I have a
Die.
tendency to ramble.
No, you're
No,
fine.
I mean, no, those three movies are definitely in the top 10 for me.
Okay.
It's hard for me to say which one I like. Like if I were to pick the one of them that I think is the best, it's still Casino Royale. Um,
Okay.
but I think it's up there with GoldenEye and From Russia with Love,
Okay.
um, Goldfinger. Um, I really like On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Um,
Mhm.
I I like the Timothy Dalton movies, especially The Living Daylights. Um, he When he was Bond, he was kind of like, who was I listening to? Um, maybe Rotten Tomatoes is wrong. I think someone said that like Timothy Dalton was Daniel Craig before Daniel Craig, because those movies, like after the Roger Moore movies, a number of which are very goofy, um, they took a super grounded kind of gritty, dark turn with the Timothy Dalton ones. Um, and I think License to Kill is kind of leans a little too far in and it makes some weird choices. But like I really like The Living Daylights, and that's the first Timothy Dalton one. Um, and then my favorite Roger Moore movie is The Spy Who Loved Me, which, by the way, has another spectacular woman character with Agent Avasova. She's a KGB agent who seduces and takes advantage of him in order to get stuff for her government, and then by the end they're working together to beat the actual villain. But it's it's
Yeah.
an old franchise that has a lot of old issues, and I like to think that we've moved past a lot of that stuff, but
Mhm.
it also when the movies are good, they're really good.
Yeah. I think that the attraction for No Time to Die lies in its spectacle embedded in a very human conflict.
Absolutely. Yes, it is. It seems like, that it's a big world-ending conflict in theory, but it really boils down to, that he's doing his job, but is he doing his job because he has to do his job, or is he doing his job because he has to save his daughter? You know what I mean? So it's also spoiler alert:
Yeah.
Madeline has a 5-year-old who turns out to be Bond.
You
And
know,
that's
that was the one thing about this movie that I was like, about. I
really
was like,
because
she's
that
like,
is a.
it's not yours. And then she's like, yeah.
Or by the way,
I was just like,
but
why?
the blue eyes though, and it's funny they brought up the blue eyes because that was a thing that people hated on when they cast Daniel Craig was his big baby blues. Um, and that, no, it's not character. But Bond has never been in the movies, at least, had never been blonde and blue eyed before. Um, so people made fun of him for that before they realized that he was such a talented guy. Um,
Okay.
Even though, uh, and coming from a guy who doesn't read, like I think Daniel Craig looks more like Bond does in the novels than some of the other actors do. So
Okay.
it is, but push comes to shove, it just is what it is. But
Okay.
yeah, so
Yeah, I think that's a great way to justify the evolution of Bond anyway with whoever they cast next.
absolutely.
It's like it doesn't have to look or sound any specific way to be Bond. So that's
Anyway,
setting a
yeah,
precedent without knowing it, I guess.
it's obvious we both really like this movie. I think as certainly fans of the franchise should see it, but like Katie was saying, she's not super familiar and she had a great time. So
Yeah.
it's No Time to Die definitely deserves your time. It's a fantastic movie. I guess you probably seen it if you're taking the time to watch this, and I appreciate you hanging out with us. Uh, at this point, we are going to move on from No Time to Die and talk about Denis Villeneuve's Dune. Um,
Totally
I
different
I watched
set
it
here.
on HBO Max on my big screen with headphones on. So if I'll probably check it out in IMAX in a couple of weeks. There's some other movies coming that I want to see too. But this was, like I said earlier, this and No Time to Die were my most anticipated movies from last year. And now they're both finally out. This one got delayed a full year from last. It was supposed to come out last October. Um,
Mhm.
I we about a week and a half ago realized I hadn't seen the original Dune since I was probably in middle school or something.
I've
And
never
at that
seen it.
point in time, I didn't really get it. So I went back and watched that, and it is, man, it's rough. The David Lynch one, yeah, it's like it's really cartoony, and it doesn't. It seems like it skips over a lot of really important information. Um,
Mm, okay.
and I even think that uh, the Villeneuve's version could probably actually live with a little bit more exposition than they give us. Um, and it's only because there are a lot of words in this movie that they don't really define.
Yeah.
So it's. But
I
yeah, please go ahead.
came in, well, first I saw it in a theater, which was really, really nice. I mean, it was, and I went at a mid-afternoon matinee, so there was hardly anybody there, and it was almost like I had the full theater to myself, which was superb. So I really got to like feel the sound and really experience it without being distracted. And this is a must see it in a theater kind of movie.
Noted.
Like,
Yeah, it's in the plan. I got some
yeah,
other stuff's coming out soon, but I think it deserves it for sure.
yeah, if you can safely go see this movie, I would definitely recommend it, seeing it in a theater. And I went in totally blind. Like I had a little bit of an idea. I knew that there were some weird words and names for things, and I had an idea of who the characters might be based on the casting. So that was all I took into it. I didn't have any idea really. I mean, I watched an interview of the whole cast before I watched it, and they were talking about the spice, and I thought it was like a metaphor, and it's
No,
not.
it's not a spice. I guess it's like drugs is the way
Yeah,
that you could. talk about it most specifically, but it's also not drugs. I don't know. They
Yeah, it's
it's
like
yeah.
kind of. So I really I it took me, I think, a good 24 hours to kind of absorb it all and then come to a place where I was like, yeah, I really did really enjoy that. One, it's a beautiful movie. It's
Stunning.
directed really well. I think it's structured well. And the only thing I would say was that there was so much new, which cannot be helped, right? All of the backstory and exposition and elements of this film are totally new concepts. So it can't be helped if you're going to end up being confused, not having read the books, right? And or seen the first movie. Even then, I feel like from this first movie that I haven't even seen, there's probably enough in the new one to be like, there's a lot more here. Um, and so I walked away with some questions I didn't quite understand. And one of them was that I was very confused about the dream sequences and how the dreams visions were working. And I had asked my brother about them, and because he's read most of the first book, I think. And he said, Paul has visions or dreams of possible futures. And those possible futures can be hard to indicate based on chaos. So like in the final part of the movie when he fights a dude, which is not a spoiler, right? He just fights a dude.
He fights a dude.
He he tries to see what the outcome could be, but my brother described it as battle is too chaotic to kind of predict. So Paul sees visions of possible futures, and that was a key piece of information that I was missing from this first movie that really helped me understand more of what was going on. But on the flip side of that, it was explained to me from my brother that it's meant to be confusing and not totally there because that's how Paul is experiencing it.
And I dig that to a degree. You know, sometimes it can be frustrating.
Yeah.
I listened to Chris Gore on the Film Prep podcast. He's the critic guy I've been following since I was in high school. I love him. And he's apparently a big fan of the novels. And he kind of explained it like the Bene Gesserits, the women that are Rebecca Ferguson, his mother, Paul's mother, is one of these women, and Charlotte Rampling's character is one of them, and they are they're psychic. First of all, they have this power called the voice, and they can force people to do things for them. But they have also, for centuries, been coordinating breeding. So, because their end goal is they're going to create the Messiah that's going to save the universe. And I'm probably oversimplifying it, but and it's that doing this takes centuries. They identify traits in a number of people, and then kind of point people together so that eventually when they procreate, you get a little bit closer to that Messiah person. And I forget what the name. It's a confusing, unpronounceable name for what that is. But yeah, and they think it is Paul, and they one of the because one of the reasons they think so is because he has these visions, and it's because it's predicted that this Messiah person will be able to see possible futures. And that is I didn't get that from the movie, and that is just one of those things. I think we could use a little bit more exposition, but I don't think it's a problem. I still enjoyed the movie tremendously. The cast is spectacular, and and
I think of that element though of like missing some things. I think even though I totally agree with you, and I felt like I was missing a couple of things too, I think that's actually an active choice. I don't think it's like an oversight or a negligence based on the screenplay or the direction. I think it's an active choice to take the audience on that same journey as Paul.
And that might be true because it's really focused on Paul and where it cuts away to the Baron just a couple of times to kind of give you some context about what the other people the other guys are doing. But it's really a movie about Paul and Paul's relationship with his father, and then later on his relationship with his mother, and his personal journey from, it's he doesn't really want the future that he's destined for. It's almost um like a Simba and the Lion King situation. He knows he's supposed to be the Duke, but he doesn't really want it. And then he discovers, or he knows that he's supposed, in theory, he could potentially be this Messiah person, and he doesn't want any, it's like John Connor in Terminator. Everyone tells him he's going to save the world, but
Yeah.
he doesn't want any part of it. So he didn't make the choice to be that, so he resists against it.
I think that's actually a wonderful way to describe it. I never would have thought of that, but yeah.
And once I had that little piece that they talked about on the Film Prep podcast, it's like, okay, this is now that, because Paul seems like he's a kid, but he's a really angry kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't get where the anger was coming from exactly, because he's like, he has a lot of respect for his father. He just doesn't really want to become the Duke. He has these responsibilities and he carries them out. But he's kind of wants to choose his own way. And he knows he has to be the Duke. He definitely doesn't want to be this Messiah person. And it's kind of confusing and frustrating for a young person, because everyone's telling you what you have to be. And you sometimes you just want to choose for yourself.
And I think that's exactly why seeing this movie without any context is also a little confusing and a little frustrating for audiences. And I think it's because the movie is so dependent on Paul's perspective.
Yes.
It's not, I almost want to say it's like a first person perspective.
It almost is. Yeah. It's all about, and he's played by Timothée Chalamet. And he's wonderfully. He's brilliant in it. It's a lot of angst.
Yeah.
Anger wasn't fair. It wasn't a fair assessment. He's very angsty. Like teenagers tend to be.
Yikes. Yep. And I just do want to quickly say that Zendaya did a lovely job too.
And considering she's not in the movie very much.
Movie for Zendaya, you're at the wrong movie.
That's fair. She's for the most part, like he knows he's supposed to meet her because he sees her in these visions, but she doesn't really appear in person until like the third act. Really, like we hear her voice at the beginning. She gives a little bit of voiceover, and then we see flashes of her until Paul actually encounters her near the end.
Yeah, I don't even want to call it the third act. I want to call it like the climax. But it's like a really late climax. And that was the one thing about this movie. Like, I'm okay with it now, having sat with it and gotten a little bit more information about the story in general. But I felt like the movie just like ended,
it has some Fellowship of the Ring syndrome, right? Yes. They fight a battle, and then like, all right, I guess we got to keep going, and then they walk down the hill, and then the movie's over. Dune ends exactly the same way. He finds these people out in the wild, and then he's forced to fight one of them, and then they accept him, and then like, okay, so we got to keep going. We're just gonna walk across the desert now, and then that's when the movie ends.
I don't feel like that's a spoiler. I feel like that's just.
Well, it's the nature of it being one portion of a complete novel. Like it's like,
yes,
yeah,
for sure. My brother, who has read the book, said it's a great place to stop for this book in particular. They stopped it at just the right point. And my brother he's a very notoriously kind of like quiet person. Like I know him and I know that he's like not quiet, but like even like having a conversation with him is kind of just like, give something to me, And so the fact that he was like, this movie was excellent, and we actually talked about it, him as a fan, knowing the book, I was like, all right, I'm okay with having this kind of like open-ended ending, and it just kind of feeling like, I understand that the climax of this movie is an emotional climax and not a physical conflict climax. It's not in the form of a big, huge fight. It is an emotional climax, which is hard to nail in a big movie like this. And I think
it works.
I felt better. Yeah, I think it does work.
People have been trained to expect a big climactic battle at the end of their sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
And even, I mentioned the top of the show. I mentioned the Green Knight, and that is it's set in medieval times, kind of, sort of, but it is not. And I would even call it a fantasy film, but Lord of the Rings, it is not. It's a very focused movie about one character that it's an Arthurian legend is what it is. So he interacts with King Arthur, and he has to go on this quest. And then, but it has kind of a really downer ending almost, and there's not a big conflict. There's no spectacle. It's just one guy who hallucinates, kind of like, there's a lot of similarities here that I'm thinking about it. He hallucinates kind of like Paul in this movie. And then, he goes through all these different story beats, and then there isn't a big finish. That's just there's a really somber moment at the end, and then the movie wraps up. And this kind of is very there's the big screen moments, because Paul gets real up close and personal with a sandworm right at the end. But there's not the big sci-fi battle that most audiences have been trained to expect from this kind of movie.
Some kind of like mythical sea monster, octopi kind of weird battle thing in a magic realm at the end of Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
It's not what this movie is.
It is not.
And I'm okay with that. I thought, I was,
and that's coming. If it's anything, or if the 84 movie, if the climax of that is anything like the actual novel, all that's coming. Like there's gonna be a big space battle. It's just we're not there yet.
Yeah, this is definitely a part one, like it is marketed to the audience at the very beginning of the film. This is Dune part one.
Part one.
And I think that if it weren't for the pandemic, they would have greenlit part two already.
It seems like it's pretty likely.
I've heard that
it's not, they haven't said it officially, but
yeah, they have the actors on retainer, but they haven't really gone through with it yet. So, I mean, the fact that we're even talking about it, and it's already been talked about so much, and it's still the opening weekend. Today is Sunday, the 24th of their opening weekend. And the fact that it's already doing incredibly well.
It's making money. And if it hits the big thing is if it hits the HBO Max numbers. So yeah, I am optimistic, because I want to, if nothing else, I want him to finish his movie, because I love Denis Villeneuve. He has yet to make a bad film. Most of them are in fact, everyone I've seen is absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So and for people who don't know, he directed Prisoners with Hugh Jackman. He directed Sicario.
Sicario,
it's
so
good. It's so intense.
And I just love Emily Blunt. The two of them together working on that movie.
Brilliant. Arrival with Amy Adams.
Arrival.
And then we already talked about Blade Runner 2049. That was my favorite movie from that year. It
For
is
somebody that actually does not enjoy the original Blade Runner, I've seen parts of it. I just find it really hard to sit through. I did enjoy 2049. I've seen 2049 and I loved it.
Which version of Blade Runner did you watch? And I'm not going to say they're all dramatically different. That would be a lie. But do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, because there's a version called first of all, there's 7 different cuts of this movie for God knows what reason. There's a version called The Final Cut. And it's actually, I can't reach. Do I want to show? I kind of do. Stand by.
Okay.
It can't. They released it on DVD when I was in college, or probably high school actually, and it came in this giant briefcase. This has every version of Blade Runner that's ever come out.
Oh my God.
I got this for it's filthy. Got this for Christmas one year. I'll set it down.
That's a lot. Yeah, I don't know which version it was. But
and there are criticisms you could lay against it that are absolutely justified. Harrison Ford comes off a little skeezy. I love him. That's fair. But, and he's they recontextualize some weird choices that are made in that movie in 2049 to make it seem like he really loved the replicant character whose name is escaping me right now. But
I really did enjoy 2049.
No,
It's insane.
it's brilliant. Like, and
Insane.
Dune is no less thematically complex.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
it's what he very smartly distilled it down to a really simple story. Like, or I don't know if I would call it simple, but it's a really linear story for Paul.
Mhm.
There's beats that we go. It starts out on his home world, and they find out they're in charge, and then they go to Arrakis, and then there's the big moment where they reveal the worms and why hunting the spice is so dangerous, and then he starts having these visions. There's a really clear A to B to C in this movie for Paul.
Yes.
And so and they distilled it down, and I think that made the movie really digestible, much more so than it could have been. And that's a big problem, I think, with the original movie. Not only does everything just seem ridiculous, like the Baron is a fucking cartoon character, but they take twice as much stuff and they smush it into a movie that's shorter than this one. And you leave out a lot of things that seem really important to Paul's story and to the overarching kind of politics that are really happening here. Like, it's Game of Thrones in space. Like, Dune is the work that inspired Game of Thrones, because of the family. It's no coincidence that they're called House Atreides and House Harkonnen, and it's
but also Star Wars.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is Dune contributed to any number of these things that we love. And it's a big, dense novel, and it's one of those that have repeatedly been called unadaptable, and it's people have tried to adapt it multiple times, and it just never it has never worked out. Like, I watched the miniseries when it first came out. I think that was my first exposure to it. I think came out when I was in elementary school. It was cool, but I didn't get it. So then I went and found the movie and rented the movie, and it was cool, but I didn't get it. And now, now it's I got to give a lot of credit to Denis Villeneuve, because I don't think it's because I'm a more savvy person. I really think it's because he took what is a really complex story and he distilled it down to only the parts that matter. But he really understands what the parts that matter are. And that's go ahead.
I think that it's, as linear as it is, because it definitely is, it works as a screenplay. It's also incredibly nuanced, and that comes from his direction.
Yes, this movie's so good, dude. Like, thinking about it even more, it's just like so much of it is just, it's so like, it's really well paced. It's really deliberate. Like, it feels. I'm not going to say it feels long, but it feels like it's longer than 2 hours. Like, I wouldn't, if I would actually ask for there to be a little bit more dialogue to explain some of these things. But if anything like that doesn't tell me I was bored, so, and it doesn't, I don't know. The length didn't bother me. Because, it's about 2 hours and 40 minutes.
I can see this being a multi-installment franchise. 100%.
And WB needs a franchise right now. Like, they are banking on this and The Matrix. Like, Mortal Kombat, I don't think they're going to make I don't think they're going to make the sequel. Which is, as a video game guy, that kind of bums me out, because we didn't see the thing we really wanted to see. We didn't get to the tournament in that movie. So this could be. I don't think Denis Villeneuve is going to continue if it goes past part 2. But I think they're going to keep making the movies if the next one is successful.
I don't know. I think Denis Villeneuve is very attached to this story, and
I think he takes an executive producer role. And hey, if he wants to keep making them, I would love it. I would also love for, he's got a really unique voice, one that's completely different than anything else in Hollywood. And if he wants to go make something else, then he has my, I've already bought the ticket. You know what I mean? Like, he has my full support to do whatever he wants.
I think he is going to end up being to Dune what Christopher Nolan is to The Dark Knight. I think he's going to have that much of an impact, because when we talk about Christopher Nolan and Christopher Nolan's filmography, the highlight is what he did with, we'll come back around to Batman.
Right, that's fair.
And not just that, but he made it very iconic and approachable and human, And I think that, he has a very nuanced, very deliberate approach to those kinds of themes. And I think that Denis Villeneuve is doing a very similar thing with Dune in his own creative style. But I think that equating Denis Villeneuve to a similar role as Christopher Nolan would be accurate, even in an executive producer role, because he executive produced Zack Snyder's movies for DC.
Denis Villeneuve did? Oh no, Christopher Nolan did.
Christopher Nolan, yeah.
Yes.
And so even if Denis Villeneuve, like you said, doesn't continue on directing Dune films,
he'll have his fingers in it. I'm confident.
100%, just like Christopher Nolan did with the Zack Snyder DC films that involved, everything from Man of Steel up till Justice League.
Justice League, yeah.
So I
mean, and like I said, I would love for whatever Denis Villeneuve wants to make, I am here for it. Like, I definitely want to see Dune Part 2, and then there's apparently the second book is much shorter, and it's almost like an epilogue to this one. It's like called Dune Messiah or something, and that could be. I've heard some on Film Prep podcast, they were saying like that would make a really tight trilogy. If he finishes out the first novel, and then if they adapt the second book into a third movie, and that could and then maybe they keep going after that because there's definitely more books. But and I just don't. I'm coming from a guy who doesn't know. I just listen to podcasts. I haven't read, so
I could definitely see Denis Villeneuve taking on a trilogy. I can see that. Where they continue on and do some kind of recasting or continuation, I don't know. But I think that Timothée Chalamet is going to be owning this role as much as
any Marvel character does, for sure.
Joker, or Mark Hamill owned Luke Skywalker, which is, I am aware, a very big statement to make. But I think Timothée Chalamet is that entrenched in the story, and he believes in this franchise and the messaging. Everything I've heard from the cast so far about what Dune means and how they approach it, has been very, very insightful and very philosophical. So I think that between Timothée Chalamet's complete devotion to Denis Villeneuve and his devotion to character and really good nuanced acting, I can see them kind of being that dynamic duo for a while. And I think that they've just created something that is at the time needed, and that's why
we have the Marvel movies, and that's probably the thing that, if there's anything that defines cinema in 2021, it's probably the Marvel movies. And I'm not going to say whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's like we could use the next Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this
something
could
a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more artistic. I feel like this was an art house film on a crazy, insane studio budget.
And you say that unless and it could absolutely be wrong, but unless Wikipedia lies to me, this movie does not have the budget you might expect. This when I checked, it was 170, which is.
Wow.
Which is more than most movies that get made, but it's not.
We're talking millions, though.
Yeah. Okay. It's $170 million. Which is more than most. That's a relatively big budget movie. It's less than what Marvel movies get made for. It's and maybe they thought it was a risk, so they didn't go all in on the first one, and the next one will get a bigger budget. But
I don't I can definitely see it getting a bigger budget. But I don't want it to, almost, because I love the way that it was approached, and I don't want the cash flow, the available resources to influence the way
it's made. And I get that, it needs to, even if they expect, Wikipedia is saying the budget's $165 million. And we're gasping at how low that is. Let's be real. That is most movies are made for less than $20 million. The majority of movies
Justice League.
How
much is Justice League? That's what I want to know. Is
they're never going to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, that was a crazy set of circumstances. But even All right, what was Shang-Chi? Let me look that up. Shang-Chi. Um
It's gonna say 200, but they don't actually know. That's what I'm gonna guess.
uh
Let's check it out. See who gets there first.
estimated production budget of 150 million. That seems low. That doesn't seem right.
Okay. Does it seem like
That's a new
that takes place in the real world? Not
yeah.
every in the real world. That's a loaded statement, but they're filming on the street in San Francisco, which you cannot do for a movie like Dune.
Okay, so
Everything has to be constructed or created via CGI.
for the first Doctor Strange movie, the high end of the estimated budget is 236.6 million. For the first
Doctor Strange, that seems really high considering what Doctor Strange is, but who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, and this is all this means is it's a hard metric to judge things by, but
yeah. I still, like, and that was the first iteration for that franchise within Marvel. So, 165 million is a lot of money for a first outing. I think
it's more money than any of us will ever see.
Right. Right. But also, I just feel like for the scale, I feel like the scale of this movie was 10 times more than what Shang-Chi or Doctor Strange are, because we can talk all about production value or like locations, but just the scope of this movie is so much more than guy is in an accident, guy loses hands, guy needs to learn magic to get his hands back.
Absolutely.
Which is essentially Doctor Strange. And then Shang-Chi is guy loses mom, guy knows karate, guy has to, stop his dad. Essentially.
Fair.
And I feel like Dune just encompasses so many more nuanced themes.
Thematically, yes. If you break down the story, it's dad gets a new job, so they move to a new place, and then his dad dies on the job, but then he gets caught, and then he gets lost in the desert. That's what happens in this movie.
Yeah. And so even just describing that way, like I'm just like seeing like, all right, Doctor Strange is in New York, Shang-Chi is in I guess Hong Kong, I think. And it's so real, it's still embedded in the real world, right? In our world. And so it's just kind of crazy to me that having to equate something into a completely different universe would be treated as such like an independent kind of art house style. Not to say that Denis Villeneuve is like an independent indie director, because he's not.
Definitely not.
I just get that sense of just like really fine finesse, attention to detail. I would not describe any Marvel movies as being Shakespearean. I would definitely describe.
I agree. Yeah.
I would definitely describe Dune as a very like Shakespearean kind of tragedy, and I don't want to say tragedy, but because that, for regular audiences, that evokes like sadness and complete despair and like people die, which is true, spoiler, but also in the sense that tragedy is about somebody overcoming something.
Absolutely.
Right? That's where tragedy comes from. I mean, just look at Macbeth, look at Hamlet, right? And so those characters are in some kind of crisis moment and have to find some kind of avenue out of it. And I can see Paul being kind of like a tragic hero in some ways. And I think
I can dig that. Yeah, and then it's also just based on what I've read on the Wikipedia about what's potentially coming later. Like that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, hey, this is why I do what I do.
Absolutely.
So I just think that we got onto the subject via the budget, and I just think that I don't know. I think that giving this franchise, I mean, obviously they're going to give it more money. I just don't want to lose that very tangible sense of struggle,
And I'm confident that we won't for at least the next one, because
Ugh,
I know if part two gets made, it's going to be Denis Villeneuve. If
yeah.
again, if they move to another movie, it's who knows. But it's I just think the smart move here was to stick with Paul and to make us understand what Paul feels as best we possibly can, including when he's really confused about things. Um,
Yeah. I
but
can
if
say
we
after this movie, though, I would love to watch Timothy Chalamet take on Hamlet. Yes, please. Like 100%. I
everyone
think he
needs to
could
be in
hold
one
it.
good Shakespeare movie.
Exactly. Like Tom Hiddleston. Tom Hiddleston does such a good job as Loki and really grounds that down as into some kind of like tragedy, struggle, because he is such a good actor, Shakespearean actor. I think that, I mean, we can talk about Shakespeare all we want, which is a very like, I guess it's seen as kind of like a pretentious thing these days,
It
but
probably is, but
so much.
I'm all in for it. We should do one about Shakespeare and movies at some
Oh
point.
my God, please. I'm here for it. I have ideas already. I'll send you a bunch of stuff.
Excellent.
You'll be like, oh my God, I should not have suggested this. But I just, Shakespeare is very embedded into our entertainment world more than we ever could know. And not even just entertainment, but our communication, our vernacular, the way that we think about things now. There's a
Absolutely.
great video that the New York Times did explaining this, which you can find on YouTube. If you just type in like New York Times Shakespeare, it would probably come up right on YouTube. And so I think that the only way I can really equate the gravitas and the nuances of this film are to equate it to some kind of Shakespearean tragedy. And I think that it's the closest that we've come to Shakespeare in space, which is like a running joke, in
Right.
the theater community is like, don't do Macbeth in space. There's no reason, But I feel like this is the closest we can get to it, where it still feels very human, but on a
Absolutely.
very big scale. And it, you know, I'm sure I would love to look into what people have written about like Star Wars being, like Hamlet, or whatever else, or being influenced by Shakespearean influences. But it's just so apparent to me in this story of Dune. I would love to look into more of the influences of the original author, because I just think that this,
The father getting killed by a rival and then the son taking over is a very Hamlet kind of setup. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
And in Hamlet, it's that the uncle kills the father. That's
Right.
not a spoiler. It's been hundreds and hundreds of years.
No. It's you can't spoil Shakespeare. No worries.
No, no.
But I don't know. They're
But
vaguely related to the Baron. There's some.
yes,
He's like their
yes.
cousins or something. He mentioned it.
Yeah, yeah. And so even
Stellan Skarsgård. Before we wrap up, let's talk about Stellan Skarsgård. Like I mentioned before, like the Baron in the old movie is a cartoon character. Like, and there's the I expected a good performance, and we delivered a really really intense performance, and it's always like in a really gross. Well, like he's such a gross person, and it's like there's like in the steam bath, and then he's like sitting in oil or something to heal up, and it's like, but it's always he doesn't say a lot of words, but
mm,
he's always very direct, but he's always very calm. And if an actor can really nail that really disarming calmness, it's even when he's angry, it's like it does incredible things on the screen. And Stellan Skarsgård, he's probably my after Timothy Chalamet, is probably my favorite performance. He's
and
also one of two actors who get naked. The both of whom are dudes. And Stellan Skarsgård looks like a whale, but Oscar Isaac he's a fine looking dude.
this is actually a great segue, because I actually, I was talking to my brother about the film because he knows more about it than I do. And we actually both agreed that Oscar Isaac was our favorite performance of the film.
I
And then I
love
think
how
second to Oscar Isaac, from my brother at least, was Josh Brolin, which I think comes from his
Josh
knowledge of.
Brolin, he's just like, he's mastered being that one cool guy in the corner. You know, like
Yeah.
and he's obviously, he's Thanos, he's the big bad in the Marvel movies, but like, just like Josh Brolin is always that one cool guy over there. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
he has a small part, but it's really important, and it's really, you know, it's a really big deal for Paul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this Oscar Isaac is fantastic. I love that Oscar Isaac comes in, or I guess really Duke Leto comes in, and he's really um, juxtaposed to the Harkonnens, who do nothing but take advantage of the natives. But
And I think
you
it's
know,
so
it's like
easy. It's so
Leto just
easy.
wants to come in, and they have work to do, but he respects the culture of the natives. Like, and I love the moment where like Javier Bardem comes in. He's one of they call him the Fremen, the natives on this planet, and like, and he spits, and he's not being deliberately disrespectful. It's because they're a desert people, and they value water, and that little bit of moisture is a big deal. Like, and then Jason Momoa's character, who has been visiting for some
Well,
time now, he's like, no, like you honor us with the sacrifice of moisture from your body, and then they all spit. Like, it's,
mhm.
you know, and
It's
it's a really
gross,
cool.
but it's cool.
Yeah, no, like it seems great, but it's a really um it's an imperialism thing, and you know, you come
Yeah.
in, and we know we're the outsiders here, but we respect you, and we're not here to force you out.
And I think that's a really important part. I like how you describe them as imperialists, because it's so easy for this Duke Leto character, which that name and the title in itself is so, I think, militaristic and evocative of like colonialism and imperialism,
Like
right?
the other Stellan Skarsgård's called the Baron, like, and Baron makes me think of like, well, like World War II cartoons. You know what I mean? Like, it's you know, they are outsiders coming in because they need this spice that is like, it's the most valuable thing that known in the known universe. But
Hmm.
you know, it's a very different approach. Whereas the Baron takes it as everything here is mine and you're in my way. Whereas the Duke, Oscar Isaac's character, is like, I have to do my work, but I'm not I'm not here to take over. I'm not here to force you out of your home.
And here's the great thing they did screenplay wise and making it work. And it's got a couple of layers to it, so bear with me, but it's so smart. So it's so easy for the Duke Leto character to end up initially coming off as like, the oppressor or the
Absolutely.
militant, and somebody, I went in thinking that this character was going to end up being like the harsh dad, militant dude, and he was going to take over and he's going to be really regimented. And he was going to end up being somebody that we rooted against. That was just my impression coming in from having seen the character's dress and the way that he was being portrayed. And I think that's exactly what we're supposed to think, because the very first thing that they do is take this character and give you a bigger bad off screen to
Yes.
make you like this character more. Classic trick, right? If you have a character at the beginning of your film that you think might not be somebody that the audience roots for, you put a bigger bad off screen, which is the
So
emperor.
you find somebody worse, and you hide them until you need them.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, your character that the audience might be apprehensive about is suddenly an angel, right? And I think that is so smart, because it sets us up to think that the Duke is going to be some kind of militant dude that we actually root for just because there's a bigger bad off screen. But then they flip that by making the Duke actually a great guy. you know?
Absolutely.
And I think Oscar Isaac is very cognizant of that exact dynamic that is going on with the audience in the screenplay. And I think he plays that so fantastically. And I think that that is written so well too. Just like the trick at the beginning, where we still think that we're still apprehensive about a Duke character, we get a bigger bad off screen, and then it turns out that we had no reason to be apprehensive about this character. I think that whole thing is just done so well, and that is exactly the kind of nuance that I'm talking about that runs throughout this film.
That
And
is we've brought up Game of Thrones already. Like, first season of the first episode of Game of Thrones, we're introduced. When we first get to Winterfell, we're introduced to the Starks, and it's, the first thing here is, or the first thing we see with Ned Stark is he has to execute somebody. It was like, okay, this dude's a bastard. Except like, no, he's just doing his job, and sometimes his job sucks. But then we come around to the Lannisters, who are the as close to the villains as Game of Thrones even has, because as everyone in Game of Thrones and everyone in Dune is really complex in a really nuanced way. But
even on a bigger scale, I mean, you're totally 100% correct. First we see the Starks and we're like, oh, like not Stark, what? And then the Lannisters are like, and the Baratheons are more of the villains, right? It's really the Lannisters, but in the beginning, Baratheon, right? On an even bigger scale, the first scene of Game of Thrones, season 1, episode 1, first thing.
Get back on your horse.
What?
Get back on your horse. That's the...
Yeah.
It's like the guy's terrified. It's like, no, we have to... But he has this really commanding military guy that's telling him to go wander off into the wilderness.
Yeah. And so like the White Walkers are introduced as the big bad before we even see anybody else.
Right.
And that's really effective because then we have this knowledge at the outset that there is a bigger bad outside of the Lannisters, outside of the Baratheons, outside of the Starks, so I think that's really effective. And it's the same thing here, but I think it's done in such a nuanced way in Dune that I really admire the way that it was, one, written, but two, performed by Oscar Isaac. I don't know how this is going to fall into award circuit. I mean, they're certainly releasing things at this time of year because that's what they want.
It's going to win best effects. It has a good chance at best cinematography. I don't know what I would, if there's anything I would vote for in place of it. But
I mean, director, I think Denis
sound design and score. Oh my God, the music in this movie.
Fantastic.
But it's like, it's really textural. Sometimes Hans Zimmer goes like the big dramatic themes way, but that is not what this is. It's really textural, and there's a lot of like choir vocal, but not in a way you anticipate. It's really like almost spectral sound. Like oh God, it's so cool. I loved it. Like all the technical categories in this movie, like it's almost certainly a clean sweep.
And so I think that because the technical categories of this film are so spot on, I mean, I don't want to diminish any of the performances, but they're so good. I don't know if they were like, I think they were certainly Oscar worthy, but I don't know if they fit into that genre of Oscar nomination.
I mean, and that's Oscars are I don't want to say pretentious, but it's a conversation to have. Like, I think the only the only actor who has a chance of a nomination is Timothée Chalamet. And I don't think he'll get it. And it's just because the movie's weird.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think they could bandwagon the actors onto an Oscar nomination for the film, but I don't know if that's the direction that the movie goes in conjunction with the Oscars. I think that for a Golden Globe, maybe for some of the actors, I said to my brother, I don't think he knew what I was talking about, but I said, I would love for Timothée Chalamet and Oscar Isaac to be recognized with a Screen Actors Guild nomination, possibly win. I think that's a great place for those performances to be acknowledged within the context of like genre, sci-fi films that don't always make it into like, a Golden Globe or Oscar, genre. Right. I just, it's very hard for sci-fi movies to break into there. But I think this one is so nuanced and so artistic and not just like a slash 'em fight 'em big movie that it has a shot. Because I'm thinking of like The Martian.
I think it does have a shot. Well, the Martian is, I would call it something very different because the Martian feels very plausible. Right, and this movie takes place in like the year 11,000 or something. So it's,
but the Martian has a similar kind of like nuanced artistic style about it.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair.
even, I said earlier that I would equate Denis Villeneuve with the Dune franchise. I'm just going to call it a franchise.
But
With
that second movie is all but guaranteed at this point.
Yeah, but I said earlier I'd equate him with Christopher Nolan's role in the Dark Knight
That's
movies.
fair.
The Dark Knight did very well with Oscars.
It didn't get nominated for Best Picture. That was a big stink, but
that's a big deal. And
yeah.
Part of Heath Ledger's win, I don't even want to say it, but for sure it was influenced by his death, which is unfortunate. But it's 100% deserved. I think that even if he hadn't died, he still would have gotten it, And so I think that it has a shot. I just think things right now are so weird, and the Oscars have been so, they've had a lot of like pretentious, serious movies in the running.
Yeah, we can have a conversation about that. Like, whether or not Anthony Hopkins should have won or whatever, but it's I watched The Father, and it's really good. I don't know if it should have beaten Chadwick, but that's a different conversation.
Right, but that essence of what we're getting at here is that the style, the performances, and the direction that the Oscars have taken in the last, I want to say decade, but certainly the last 5 years, is very independent.
They're resisting against the superhero craze. Which is to be, if those movies deserve recognition, they get it.
Yeah.
And that's a fair statement to make. And also, like the Oscars have been showing intent. I'm not going to say that they have moved the right way, but they have claimed that they're showing, they have claimed intention to move the right direction as far as diversity and some other complaints that are leveled against them. I don't think we're in a time where that has all taken effect yet. Mm-hmm. But
and I think part of the reason why Dune is being so successful is that, one, it is a diverse cast.
Some people could point fingers and say it's still a white savior story, but that's
yes.
His father is Latino. He didn't have to be a white actor. He is in this case, but nothing about Paul. Who knows in space? Any character could be played by anyone of any race.
Yeah. I think that they did a really good job putting race into the movie. Oh, I forget her name because she's new to me, but she played the
Fremen doctor, bodyguard person.
Yeah.
Kynes. Yeah, I know who she's the African American actress.
Yes, and she was like, I don't know, like Chancellor of the Changeover. Like, I don't remember what it was, but she was like, the one that like helped them on the way before Jason Momoa's character is, so I think they were doing a good job as far as like trying to include diversity, and they didn't have to cast Oscar Isaac. They did. He does a great job.
And the movie's all the better for it.
Yeah. And that goes for a lot of other casting choices as well. They're wonderful, and so I just don't know how this is going to fall in, because we're still reeling in a whacked out Hollywood and global cinema market,
like everything, and the worker strike, and working in COVID is even worse than working before COVID. And it's I used to. That's what I used to do for a living, and it does terrible things to your mind and to your body.
That is exactly why I didn't go into filmmaking, because I knew it was a very toxic environment.
I had a lot of friends, but I don't want to diminish anyone else's experiences, but I wouldn't call it toxic. I just it's hard. Like like I wouldn't have seen my wife this week if I was working on an IATSE show, and that is what it is. I have a comfortable day job in events, and and sometimes I work long weeks, but it's not every week. So it's I didn't when I was first
I
pursuing
think
that,
unstructured is better. It's
my
not
life was very different. So I right now I wouldn't want to go take a job where I wouldn't see my wife for 6 months.
yeah.
That doesn't sound that cool.
Yeah. I think that's also a difference between like um a male and female perspective of it, because I think females are relegated into different expectations on a film set.
That's probably fair. And I was taking like grunt work jobs.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah. So I don't know. I just know that that whole thing was never for me, and so for this workers' strike to be another thing to talk about this award season is going to come up again and again as awards and people are being interviewed, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean,
And so
I have a lot of friends, male and female, who work in the industry, and if their lives become easier because of this contract, more power to them.
yeah,
Some of them are happy, some of them are a little disappointed with the concessions that leadership made, but I just, I wish everyone the best.
yeah. So again, that just all goes to say that I don't know where anything is going to fall this year.
I mean,
I think
that's true. Like, and there are still movies to come. Like a big one to watch is Steven Spielberg's West Side Story.
mm,
That's it's the Oscars. The Oscars are going to like it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
you're right. Yeah.
that's what I mean to say there. Like, I don't think Lawrence Bernstein is the Renaissance man that a lot of people claim he is, and that's going to give me some. The only comment I get on this video is going to be in reference to me saying that. So
Yeah, I just, like I saw the trailer
for
for it the other day and I was just like, it looks nice, but I'm not.
it looks like a stage play, and I don't think that's a problem. It's just it's a look that they went with.
I'm just not
The
looking forward to it, to be totally honest.
fair. What are we here? I'll clear out the move on till for the rest of the year. What are we looking forward to? Like I really want to see Last Night in Soho. That's in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I want to see
Big Edgar Wright
that.
fan.
I have a little list that I need to update. Let me try and find it.
Please.
TV wise, which is not what we were really talking about, but TV wise,
I keep bringing up Apple TV, but Apple TV is so consistent right now. Have you watched Dickinson?
No, I
With
don't have Apple
Haley
TV.
Steinfeld? Do you have an iPhone?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't either, but
Like
my wife has an
Android
iPhone. But no, yeah. Dickinson with Haley Steinfeld. The third season comes out November 5th, and we're really excited about that one. It's
I've
fantastic.
heard that that's really good. I've wanted to see Defending Jacob, Ted Lasso, but the nerd in me is going to come out in just a second because
Please.
I
I'm
am
here for
really
it.
looking forward to season 2 of The Witcher coming out on Netflix.
Yes. Is that this year, or that's in January, right? It's
December
soon,
17th.
but yeah. And
December
then
17th.
first week of January is the next season of Cobra Kai. I don't know if you're into that, but
No. But there's a lot of good stuff finally coming out though, and that's the
true.
point. Eternals comes out first week of November. I'm looking forward to that. It'll definitely, I can tell you now, be a contender in at least the technical categories. Chloe Zhao, the director, is coming off of a landmark Oscar win for Best Director last year.
Yes.
So I can see the trend with the Oscars has been to have like repeat nominations, like for at least 2 years, you know? So I can see Chloe Zhao perhaps being in the fray, or at least the film getting a little bit more recognition from, even though it's a Marvel movie, And I think Dune.
I mean, and I don't like to be a person who thinks that those should be different. If those movies deserve recognition, they should receive it. Black Panther should have gotten a lot more attention than it did, for example.
Yeah.
And it touches on a lot of the same imperialism themes that we're talking about with Dune.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, I don't know where that's going to fall because, typically, the Marvel movies, except for like Black Panther, haven't really, I mean, some of them get technical nods for sure. I just don't know where that's going to fall. I think
it's not unheard of. Joaquin Phoenix won for Joker, right? So it's, but that's an art house film more than anything else.
That was a very different movie.
Yeah, it's not a big budget action or like some of the other superhero stuff going on. So it's hard to say.
Eternals being great, but not in the same way as Dune. I'm anticipating Eternals being really entertaining and having a lot of star power behind it, and you could say this Dune is the same thing, but the way that they're executed in the style, and there's so much baggage that comes with Eternals from the Marvel, franchise. I just don't see them hitting the same way emotionally. And I think that's a big difference when it comes to why things like Joker and the Dark Knight series have been received by the Academy versus Marvel movies. And that was the thing that put Black Panther so high up there, is that it was a very emotional film.
It really was.
So I think Dune, I'm very excited to see Eternals. Like, I'm geeking out about it. I'm really excited. But
Me too.
I think,
And I'm really excited to finally get to check out Shang-Chi. I'm having to wait for Disney Plus, but it's coming. It'll be on there a couple of weeks.
It's good. It was also very
Typical.
It was Marvel, and I
Yeah.
just felt kind of kiddish.
No, I hear you. Like, at this point, there are so many of them that it's its own genre. You know what I mean? So like, you kind of know what to expect sometimes.
It felt very kiddish. So,
Come on, Aquafina.
I mean, I'm not kidding. When you see the
All right,
last, I think maybe like 2 acts, or at least the last act of the film, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, like, it's great. I was really entertained by it. It's my mom's favorite Marvel movie now, apparently.
Excellent.
But it felt very saturated, very kiddish. And it's like they knew that they were marketing to a younger audience, whereas I think Dune is certainly marketed to at least like 21.
Yeah, like
there.
young adults kind of situation.
Yeah, whereas I think Marvel is certainly
but the interesting, like, it's marketed toward that, but like, this is like, we can't hammer home enough like how thematically complex this movie is, and it's
so I'm looking forward to Eternals. I don't anticipate it hitting me the same way artistically, just from what I've seen from the trailer, or emotionally. I don't see that. I think we're going to have a lot to digest very superficially, whereas Dune is very like you said, thematic. Takes a little bit more brain power, but I think it's worth it. So I'm looking forward to Eternals. I mean, I don't want to judge it before I've seen it, but from the trailer, I'm not anticipating it hitting above Dune for me.
Right. Oh, I'm sure. Like, I'm trying to think. Dune, it might be my favorite movie of the year so far. Like, and that's not super surprising. Like, that's what the 2049 was my favorite in 2017. So that's
right.
I'm trying to think, what else have I seen this year? It probably is my favorite movie.
The Last Duel was great. I think it might get nominated for things despite it flopping, because we're just in a very weird COVID.
Oh, well, the box office has nothing to do with the Oscars. Like, they've proven time again they don't give a shit. So it's
yeah.
And for that, more power to them.
Yeah,
that is that one thing that what an Oscars trend that I'm totally okay with is they don't care how much money a movie makes, and that's the way it should be, really.
And I just want to say that I think that because they came out so close together, Dune this week, Last Duel last week. They're both great movies, very deep, very thematic, written very well, directed very well. They look great. The difference, I think, is that one, The Last Duel is a very white European movie, which Dune is not.
That is true.
Right? So that's a big difference right there. Secondly, I said at the beginning when we started that The Last Duel is very, very heavy, and it's content that not everybody wants to watch. And I totally get that. It was hard to watch. Then again, it's a really good story, So, I think that those two things, whereas Dune can talk about imperialism, environmentalism, colonialism, mental health, genocide. It can talk about so many things, sustainability, all of these really heavy, hot, red topics.
Very, very timely, for sure.
Yeah, but not feel heavy.
Right.
It feels poignant, but it doesn't, it doesn't turn people off. Whereas I think that's where, The Last Duel is kind of like, it's not for everybody.
That's fair. And
Where,
not, movies don't have to be for everybody.
right, they
If
don't.
you're, I think there's probably, I'm not going to look up the budget for The Last Duel right now, but there's probably a big difference between what they spent on Dune and what they spent on that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's because they're big mainstream. I don't know if I would call Dune mainstream, but it's big budget sci-fi, and that has more broad appeal than kind of an artsy period piece. And that's
yeah,
just simply the reality of things. That's not
yeah,
a
yeah.
not a criticism of either one. But I do notice that we've been going for 2 hours, so I think it's it's probably time
We
to
have a
wrap
lot
up.
to talk about.
Thanks for anyone who stuck around with us for this long. You know me. My name's Brandon, and this is I've been hanging out with Katy Burrell, film communication scholar. You can see some of her writings at katherineburrell.com.
Mhm.
Um, and we're big old dorks who like to hang out and chat movies sometimes.
Yep.
Um, if you like this, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It didn't work, so are we gonna? Oh, there we go.
There it is. Do
Yeah, there
it.
it is. Like and subscribe. Here. Ring that bell. You'll know when we post a new video. I'm also on podcast now. I'm on Anchor. I'm on Spotify as audio podcasts. It's super cool. Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody, and come back maybe next week, maybe week after for the next episode of Engine25 Reviews. Have a good one.
And
Bye.
have fun at the movies.
Yes, have fun at the movies and harness that desert power.
Yes.